Forgot how to do it. And we're recording. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Across the Aisle. My name is Chaz Case. I'm here with my very good friend, Mr. Justin Collins, today to talk about what's going on in the new year of politics. And it looks like we couldn't take a break. We couldn't relax. We couldn't get a little second of reprieve to bring in this new year after such a crazy 2020. As soon as the new year kicked off, we finally got, not finally, I guess, there was a leaked audio of Mr. Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, using his office to try and pressure the Secretary of State in Georgia to quote unquote find roughly 12,000 votes so that he could overturn the election results in Georgia because of his claims of voter fraud, which have been, in my opinion, baseless, but not only my opinion, in every court that he has brought this to in the 6 states where he is challenging this. But that is just my opinion on the left. I'm here with Justin Collins on the right. What do you say, sir?
Yeah, so I didn't get around to listening to the actual tape of Trump saying, but I read the headline and I can instantly hear it in his voice. Look, I just need you to find exactly 11,870 votes. Just find them. I don't care where you got to get them from.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I've been working on it. But, you know, Trump says a lot of shit. And if there's one thing I learned, especially during like the Mueller report, is there were a lot of instances where he said something. Mm-hmm. Hey, you should do this. And the person would be like, that's not a good idea. I'm not going to do that. And he's like, well, okay, fine. But as long as I suggested it. Is this, is it not? I don't know. But what I think is so interesting about this whole case is it's no longer trying to prove that Donald Trump got screwed. It's trying to prove to the American people who doubt the election now, because apparently, according to polls, somewhere over half of the country believes this was a rigged election. So
why do you think that they believe it is a rigged election?
I'm sure it has a lot to do with Trump saying every single day on Twitter the election was rigged. But then, you know, there's other things. As allegations come up, you know, you hear about there's more voters than there are there's more votes than there are voters or whatever. And then when you look at it and think, Joe Biden received more votes than Barack Obama did both times. And you want me to believe that the country is more excited about Joe Biden than they are Barack Obama? I mean, I'm not buying it.
Something to note that Donald Trump also received more votes than Barack Obama.
Yeah, he's the second most of all time. Yeah, and
right.
He lost.
And so it was a historic election where more people turned out for it than ever before in history.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I was not anywhere near as excited for Joe Biden as I was for Barack Obama.
And if you want to make the argument that it comes down to just that many more people just didn't want another 4 year of Trump, all right, I buy it.
Yes,
that could make sense.
We've only got 2 choices. It's between Trump and the other guy. And
right.
I would have voted for the log outside of my front yard before I voted for this man-child.
Yeah, but then it's also interesting when you look at all the state elections and how you would think with over 84 million votes he got or something like that, they didn't flip one incumbent House seat. They didn't gain any seats in the Senate. I mean, it's like, barring the Georgia runoff election.
We'll find out tomorrow.
Right, and it's like, and you're telling me with all that information that the country still wants Joe Biden to be president.
Is it possible that there are some Republicans who said, I'm voting Republican down the ticket, but not at the top. I can't do this guy anymore. He lives in a fantasy world and he creates so much division that it's bad for our country. And they probably know Joe Biden. He's been around for 36 years in the Senate, 8 years as vice president, and he's basically a liberal Republican. He's definitely nowhere near the Bernie Sanders camp, even though he had to try to persuade us to believe that he was a little bit more liberal. He definitely, he wasn't out for gay marriage in 2008, which is insane to me, that anybody could have been on the opposite side of that issue that
Yeah.
late in the game. And so I think some Republicans, the Mitt Romneys of the world, are looking and saying, listen, I want Republican ideas all the way across the board, but I can't deal with the nonsense that this fifth grader in office has created.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's because I can see how it would be confusing. How in the world did we not win any seats in the Democrats in the House? We didn't really win any in the Senate. How in the world did we win the presidency? But I think he's such a polarizing figure that you either love him or hate him. And if you're in the middle, you may be persuaded. There's got to be some Republicans who said, I can't take the lies and the craziness and the circus that he creates on a daily basis. Is that possible?
Maybe. That's possible, but I got to think that, I don't know, at least for me, looking at it, like, there are literal cities being burnt to the ground, and
Absolutely.
Joe Biden's just like, yeah, cops are, there's some bad cops out there. What are you going to do? And it's almost like at least at the very least, Trump is a bulwark towards that whole set of ideology. And if you're going to choose the devil you know versus the devil you don't, I mean, at least this devil's going to keep that shit in line.
I don't think he is. I think that is an interesting point, and I think we both agree that the city's burning to the ground. While we both don't like police brutality, we think that there probably should be some reforming and doing our best to make sure that the police are part of the community and that the community also respects the police. I think it goes both ways. And there's a lot of room for improvement in that aspect. But those cities burned to the ground on Trump's watch, not on Biden's watch. And throughout the past 6-8 months, I've heard him use the bullhorn a lot to yell and scream and divide the country more rather than figure out a way to fix the problem. I think he's really good at calling out problems.
No, he said,
I haven't seen anything.
He said to those city and state leaders, do you want me to send in the feds? Just say the word, I'll rein this shit in right now. And they're like, no, we've got this. It's a summer block party. It's great. We don't need that. So really beyond that, it's not really within his reach to do any more than that.
Is it possible that he, as the leader of the art of the deal, could have been a better negotiator, a better deal maker with those state leaders and those city leaders to be able to come up with a compromise? Isn't that what politics is all about? Is a person who can build coalitions to help solve problems? I don't see him as anybody who helps solve problems. I think he causes them and then picks a side and says, I am that side's leader. Follow me.
How many state and city officials went without during COVID? Not one of them had one complaint. They said, I need this. He goes, okay, got it. New York, you need a ship you're not going to use? Done. We need more ventilators? Hey, GM, get at it. What? We need masks? My pillow guy. Come on, bring it on.
Yeah, I think he should be. There
not
are
one Democratic leader had an issue with him.
Yeah, I think he should be commended on making sure that people got the protective equipment that they needed. Finally, I think it took a little bit of time. I wish he would have been a little bit more prepared. I don't know enough about it, but I heard he kind of dismantled the pandemic response team that was put into place.
He just took a bunch of little departments and jammed them all into one department was really what he did.
Okay, that makes more sense then. So I think we have to give credit where credit's due, but I think we also have to call out the nonsense that he spouts on a very regular basis. That call that we started this discussion with, he's using his office to bully the Republican Secretary of State, who has said, I mean, he talks about these conspiracy theories about, like, I heard in Fulton County that they're messing with the machines. And the guy's on the other line, like, no, but I heard the insides of the machines. They're messing with those. They're taking them out and replacing them. You heard anything about that? So, no, Mr. Trump, that is not happening. Okay, well, I'm just saying, I think, you guys you're doing a real disservice to the country. The country's really angry right now, and it's a felony. It's a felony to report false election results. So I'm just saying, and it's like, are you threatening these guys? Are you telling them that they might be in a little bit of trouble if they don't overturn the election result, which they hand counted just for you? which they wasted plenty of our tax dollars and all those people to ensure that you lost, and you still can't accept it, because I can't think of any other way to explain it and except that he's an egomaniac and has the temperament of somebody that shouldn't have passed their 4th grade recess class. Sorry, I'm on the name calling too much tonight. But
dude, you only got a couple days left to give it to him, man. I mean, once he's out of office, you got no more
I'm
anything.
glad that you admit that, because I don't think he knows that he's got only a couple of weeks left.
Yeah, I mean, barring God, I don't know. I don't know what it would
take.
take.
What if he just doesn't leave? What if he says, no, I am going to fight to the end?
That's not going to happen, dude. He's not going Scarface on anybody. He's going to leave. It's just going to be a lot of kicking and screaming until then.
We are doing a podcast on January 20th.
I'm still not. It's like, you remember that Super Bowl where Tom Brady and the Patriots played the Falcons? They were down like 25 points going into the 4th quarter. And everybody's like, dude, the Falcons won the Super Bowl. I'm like, I don't know, man. Don't count out Tom Brady quite yet. I don't know how he's going to do it. I don't know. It might not happen. But if anyone's going to do it, this guy's going to do it.
Well, that's what he was saying. That he was saying there's already some states that are ready to overturn their election results and recalculate it and things like that. And of course, he's tried this in every single court in every single state, but they're all against him. There's a whole conspiracy. And it's funny to know which states had the fraudulent claims too. Nebraska? No, not Nebraska. North Dakota? No fraud in North Dakota. But South Dakota? No, not there. How about the 6 states that he lost? 6. Every single state that he lost, there was fraud. Oh, that makes sense. He's just an opportunist that knew he was going to lose.
Yeah, I suppose it's a coincidence that all 6 of those states changed their voting laws unconstitutionally too. I mean, that's purely coincidental too, isn't it?
Well,
because there's a pandemic, we get to just change the rules willy-nilly. Yeah, okay.
I don't think that was the case. I think there is a pandemic, which isn't a conspiracy either. A global pandemic. The state elections are run by the states. Period. Yep. The federal government shouldn't have anything to do with them. So if they legally pass a law.
But they didn't legally pass a law, not even within their state constitutions, is what I'm saying. They broke their state constitutions.
Has that been challenged in court? And has anybody ruled on this, that they broke because I imagine that would be huge news if Pennsylvania broke the election law. They didn't,
except it got to the Supreme Court, and Roberts was the one who was like, yeah, no, let it go. Fuck it. It's their decision.
Well, okay.
And everyone said, but Roberts is going to be, but Roberts. Yeah, Roberts has screwed us every single chance he's gotten.
I love Roberts. Love you, Roberts. Because he was appointed by a Republican, right? George H.W.
Yeah, Bush.
So with even that being said, Gore got screwed out of the 2000 election because the federal court came in and said that they had to stop their recount. Even though it looked like Gore was going to win if we continued the recount, they said there wasn't a fair way to do the recount, and so it violated people's 14th Amendment rights, and so they stopped it. The Supreme Court should have never had any say, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, in the state election of Florida, because the Florida Supreme Court ruled that the election could be recounted. But they did. And what did Al Gore do? A man of plenty of decency, just like I would say George W. Bush, or just like Mitt Romney, or just like Senator McCain. These men were saying they put America and the democracy of America before their own personal well-being as far as the presidency goes. And I think that's what is so, put everything else aside, put the Pussygate aside, put all of his nonsense, injecting bleach, brainstorms that he does. I would love to see this man have a little bit of that decency that says, you know what, okay, maybe there's something fishy going on. We'll fight it out in the courts, but for the good of the country, we need to move forward and we need to come together now. And he is hell-bent on saying, no, divide. Let's take this to the streets, I feel like.
I don't know how you're going to say he's the one saying divide. We spent how many years investigating if Trump was a Russian stooge? How many millions in tax dollars? How much time and investigation? How many federal agents were tied to this one thing without any evidence of it? All hearsay. And everybody on one side, up until the time Mueller said, yeah, I got nothing, was like, yes, this is what needs to happen. So that way we know the truth. And as soon as Mueller comes out with the truth, it's like, well, he's clearly paid. I mean, this can't be true. What else do we got? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, no, I'm
sowing
with
the
you there.
division,
Okay.
damn that. We've had the division. The division has been here. The gap between left and right has never been wider.
Right.
No.
And it's tough to say that the Democrats started this. But I agree. I mean, we could go back to Hillary Clinton. How many investigations did we do on Hillary Clinton? With how many times did she have to testify? And how many times did they come up with absolutely nothing? And he said he's going to lock her up in jail, but he didn't have any reason, which is why when he comes into office, he's like, oh, we're not going to do that. Because these are great.
Exactly. He didn't lock her up because that's what he does. He says the shit that the people
he says up. He lies. We got to stop saying he says he lies. He looks in the camera, looks at you and says things that he knows are false because it will make him get a cheer in the crowd. And that's problematic as just a human. Republican
It's
Democrat,
only problematic if he follows it in practice. If his policies, yeah, I mean, dude, we had 8 years where Barack Obama is like, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. And I have no constitutional authority to give Iran all this money. And then shaboom, shaboom, he turns around and does the fucking opposite. And we're all like, well, you know, he looked good in the interview at least. You know, he said all the right things. Damn that. I want the opposite.
I'm with you.
Go ahead and say the dumb stuff that'll hit Twitter.
One time, Barack Obama, and you're exactly right. He lied there. And I think he probably in that case knew he was going to lie, but he knew this was going to get his signature law passed. I think in his mind, he's thinking, how far in the mud do I have to go to get something good done? And he was willing to go that far in the mud because he believed that this Affordable Care Act was going to put millions and millions of people on a health insurance plan that was better for them and better for the country and save lives in the long run. So he's trying to weigh those things out. Even with that, I'll give you that. I think it's really easy. And what happens a lot is that we can pull up one side and then we throw up the other side and we just go, well, it's a wash. They're both bad. But we have mountains over here of badness. And we're like, yeah, but don't you see there's some trash on the other side too? Absolutely. But we're not talking about the same amount of trash. We are
talking the same amount of trash, though. That's the thing. We are talking the same amount of trash. It's apples to freaking apples. It is literally Superman and Bizarro Superman. They're the same person.
Orchards over here.
Oh, dude, they're the same person. They're identical.
Are you telling me, coming close, are you telling me that you think Barack Obama is the same type of human being as Donald J. Trump?
I do, and I only based that off of his, 17-hour first part of his autobiography he just put out? Yeah, miss me with that.
I haven't read it yet.
It's great to read.
I have read Barack Obama's first book, Dreams of My Father, I think it's called, something like that. It's the most incredibly written book. One of the best memoir, I guess it's a memoir, little biographies that I've ever read. He is insanely brilliant. Some of his sentences I stopped and just awed, and the way that he was able to describe a sunset. The guy was heads and tails smarter than most people in our country. I'm not sure Donald Trump is smarter than the infant that I just put to bed. I'm just kidding. Obviously he's got some sort of intelligence. I think by most people's standards would say that he's brilliant at marketing himself. He knows how to get his face on the front page of the paper, and maybe trolls a little bit, and so might say some things that gets him on the front page of the paper, even though he knows he would never actually do those things. But it is a constant barrage for 4.5 years of him saying things that are just ridiculous. We're going to have a Muslim ban. We've got caravans of Central Americans coming into the country. You need to be scared. These people, like, so much of this stuff that is just bombastic and plenty of it, which was just straight up lying. I never slept with that woman. Okay, I slept with that woman, but I never paid her. Okay, I paid her, but I wasn't the one who paid her. My lawyer paid her. I never told him I didn't know it. I mean, just biggest crowd in the whole world, lying that I would, Bill Maher said it, I would give my left testicle to have Mitt Romney be the president of the United States now. I just want somebody in there who's decent, even if I
Yeah,
totally
well,
disagree
you know
with him.
what? Tough titty. We tried to give you decent twice, and you know what you said? John McCain's a racist, and Mitt Romney's going to put y'all back in chains, a la Joe Biden. So damn that. That's why we have Trump.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give you that. I think it's
We
hard for me to
tried. We
defend.
tried twice. As
You're right.
I mean,
You're
think of
right.
a more milquetoast man than Mitt Romney. I mean, you don't get a more civil human being than Mitt Romney.
You are correct.
Joe Biden said he's going to put y'all back in chains. So this, as I've said, was our bright orange middle finger to all of that. You want to try it? Go ahead.
Well, I think I agree with you. I think we would actually find some common ground on this. I think the one thing that I liked about Trump was he was the big orange middle finger to all of that politics as usual, that we have to do, everything has to be a tradition, and we have to do the ceremonies, and we have to play the game, and we look in the camera, and we can't say that because you're just not allowed to say those things, even though everybody who's watching the camera knows that you're lying. We've talked about the marijuana laws and how Barack Obama, first time in office, says, well, I don't know what they were smoking on the internet when they asked the question about marijuana laws, which was, I think, again, I guess I'm throwing Obama under the bus here, as another where he was definitely playing politics, which is a friendly word for lying. I can't think of another reason why a guy who used to take, in that first book he reads, he would take roof hits. They'd hotbox the car, and the car had those little, I don't know if you ever seen a car with the carpet on top. And sometimes the carpet would fall down, and it would have this little canopy because it didn't connect to the roof anymore. And so they'd hotbox the car, and then they'd take the roof hit off of the canopy because the smoke would get caught up there. So how this man thought it was okay to arrest, which I think we still do, over 300,000 or 400,000 people a year for the possession of a plant that harms nobody, is insane to me. So I'm glad that Trump was like, oh, I'm going to tell it like it is. I just wish he had some there to tell it like it is. I think that's why I loved Bernie Sanders, is that he was able to have that same Trump factor, but with a little bit more policy expertise, and a little bit more decency and dignity than Trump, who sleeps with porn stars 3 months after his newborn son is born, and then pays her off and calls her a horse face.
Well, to be fair, he only got with the mother of that son by cheating on the wife before. So I mean, this is all baked into the cake.
And then disperses a whole crew of protesters in Washington D.C. so he can hold up a Bible. This is not a good human being. Even if we like his policies, and I guess some people can say, I'm going to put aside the craziness because I like him getting conservative justices, and I like him and what he's done to bring the European Union back into wanting to pay for things if they want our help. So I can see some people saying that he's the devil,
Middle East, maybe just a little bit. I don't know.
Or the Middle East, credit where credit's due. But I can no longer put aside the buffoonery that he seems to exude from the pores of his orange skin.
Fair. That's fair.
All right. Little riled up. It's the new year. Is there anything else going on besides this recording that has happened?
I don't know. What do you think about the vaccine? You gotten yours yet?
I have not. I would be the first in line to do so, though. As a teacher, I'm around kids all day. I had a student today who told me that one of her parents is COVID positive. She says she tested negative, or somebody said. And so hopefully they did. I don't know. Hopefully they're not lying. hopefully the mom's quarantining, hopefully blah, blah, blah. But it's scary being in a classroom where even in the classroom, there's too many kids. We can't socially distance. We all have our masks on, but I don't know how much help the masks do if we're all sitting right next to each other for 45 minutes and then they all basically huddle up as they're transitioning to classes or huddle up before they get into the lunchroom. I mean, it's a real joke what we're doing in schools right now. The kids huddle up before lunchtime, then they go into the lunchroom, and then they're separated 6 feet apart. It's just, I don't know. It seems like we're just doing a whole lot of dog and pony shows in the school.
Yeah, it's all arbitrary, man. It's like I said in the restaurant. When you walk in the door, you have to wear your mask, but as soon as you sit down, you can take it off. But if you got to get up to go to the bathroom, you got to put it back on, and it's like,
what are we doing, right? It seems really silly, and but it doesn't look like we're going to get the vaccines first. Ron DeSantis, our governor of Florida, prioritized people over the age of 65, and I'm not privy to the information that he has. I see a lot of teachers who are saying that he's just throwing us under the bus. He's forcing us to open up the schools, but then he's not giving us the protection that we need. And I kind of agree with that. I wish he would have let each district come up with their own plan to open up the schools, because we had a lot of really good plans, like the high school kids who might have been able to stay home a little bit more. We could have spread out the kids a little more. We could have done some really innovative things and ideas that people had. But so that's my only gripe. I know that I'm probably in the 99 percentile of people that I should be okay. Because I'm young and healthy, but it's terrifying to know that, you can just look on the news and see an adult human being under the age of 40 all the time who gets sick and didn't have any underlying conditions and just happened to be unlucky. And because we don't know so much about this. Anyway, yes, I want the vaccine. Give it to me now. I'm ready to go. I'm trusting the scientists, which I know some people have a little hard time doing. What about you?
Well, you know what? I'm glad you just used that phrase, trusting the scientists. Because if there's one man who has just been fed shit sandwich after shit sandwich during this whole ordeal, and yet, as far as I could tell, to the T, has been one of the only state leaders to follow the science, is Ron DeSantis. The science would suggest, based on a study that just came out of, I want to say Harvard Medical, that by vaccinating everyone over 65, our death rate will drop 75%.
Okay.
And that's huge. I mean, now originally the CDC came out and said something about we should do the frontline and essential workers first because, and I'm not joking, this is what they said, it will give minorities a better chance to get the vaccine if we do it this way. And to be old is pretty much a privilege most white people get to face. So they're lucky to be that old in the first place. So we need to give it to the frontline workers. But what's interesting about that is if you actually break it down, you lose more Black bodies by letting the old people die than you do by letting the frontline and essential workers get the vaccine. So it's like when science starts to go woke, I'm questioning the science. I mean, there's no room in science for that. There's nothing scientific about the claim that they're making. And yet that was their initial, this is how we should disperse the vaccines. And it wasn't until this study from, again, I want to say Harvard came out and was like, if we do just everyone over 65, not only do we save more minority lives, but the death rate drops 75%. That's as scientific as it gets. It's a no-brainer.
That you should save the most lives possible, right? These are those. This is a really fun question to think about, and not fun in the sense of like it's. But we used to do these in philosophy classes, where you're talking about. I'm sure you've heard the one, and just so that people listening have heard it too, that you got, the trains going down the train track, and you've got a really fat guy. I'm sure that's not politically correct, but a really fat guy sitting on the track, right? And you've got the lever here, and you can pull the lever, but if you pull the lever, the train's going to go off a cliff and 10 people are going to die. Or you could let the train kill the fat guy on the tracks, but he'll stop the train from going over the cliff and you'll save 10 people. So do you pull the lever to save the fat guy, or do you just keep your hands off the lever and say, hey, the train's going to hit the fat guy? And most people will say, yeah, keep your hands to yourself. You're going to save 10 people. Don't kill the fat guy.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, all right, how about the fat guys standing next to the tracks? Train's coming. All you got to do is a little shove. And people go, oh, I don't know if I could do that. And so that's where your utilitarianism, where for the greater good, kind of falls apart, because like another one is like a healthy person walks into an ER waiting room, and there's a guy who needs a heart, a guy who needs a liver, a guy who needs a kidney transplant, and you've got one healthy person here who's got a healthy heart, a healthy liver, a healthy kidney. You're going to save 3 people. The best thing to do is to save that person. So with this one, I like that they're saying, the part of the CDC, I like that they're saying, well, listen, we've got people, they're looking out a little bit, and I don't mean to say Black people are the poor people, because I think I include myself in this lower middle class group, that I always kind of feel like when we talk about the economy, we're not talking about people making minimum wage. We're not talking about teachers. We're talking about the stock market, with people who can afford to invest in the stock market. I'm not in that higher level class. And I sometimes feel like our government forgets a lot about the people at the lower end of the spectrum. So I like that they're thinking about that. And a lot of those communities do happen to be communities of color, and have historically been the ones that are always the ones left out, but then asked to be on the front lines at public supermarkets, or asked to be nurses and asked to be soldiers, color or not. Just poor people a lot of times are the ones that take the brunt of these things and then get left out when the solutions come. But
see that when you go that route, that's not coming to a scientific solution. The scientific solution is, how do you save the most lives?
Well, those saving the most lives is killing the healthy person.
Even if they can't afford to get it, they will, I think, by a denomination like 150 or something, be fine compared to the age 65 and up.
Yeah.
So when you're doing science, then there is none of this class status and financial burden and what have that doesn't weigh in.
Well, you have to. I mean, science would tell you to kill the healthy person in that regards, because you'd save 3 people.
That's like, socialism. That's not science.
Well, what is the most ethical thing to do? But I agree with you. I think in this case, you want to save as many people as you possibly can. And I've got a grandmother who's 87, and I know she would tell me, don't worry about me, save the people who are actually out there and who are in danger. Like those people that are, working at Publix and Walmart and working in these schools. But it's really hard for me to say that, some kid who's 21 years old and is working at Walmart should get the vaccine before somebody who's 85, like that their life is more important, especially when, like you said, they have a much better chance at surviving, much better chance at surviving than the 85-year-old. And so I'm not totally against that, especially if he's got all the numbers on his side, like you're saying. Then, okay, I'm with you there.
There's one more interesting thought that I didn't think of, but somebody asked me, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any means. If the medical professionals say it's safe, I trust that. It's probably safe. I mean, what would be the gain of putting out a faulty vaccine? You know what I mean?
Just tank your company.
Right. But what somebody said is, how do we know what this does to us genetically, like if we were to have children after having this vaccine? We don't know. This shit's brand new. So at least the 65 and up aren't having kids anytime soon, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not, they said that it's not approved for kids under the age of 18 yet, I don't think. So these are only for...
You get the vaccine, you don't catch COVID, but you have a kid with a tail or something like that. It's like, man, I wish I would have just caught COVID.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at it, and this is a different vaccine than the ones that we've had in the past, because I guess it works with the mRNA protein, so it's not actually. I don't know enough about it.
Virus, yeah, it's not the virus itself, but yeah.
Yeah, it's the protein in the virus that gets your body ready for it. Um, but yeah, when you look into the history of like the polio vaccine, which has done wonders for the world, a couple of the people in the first year got polio, and still have trouble walking today. And I've heard stories on that on NPR and things that there are some problems because you can test it on 50,000 people, 100,000 people. It's not the same thing as testing it on 50 million people. And something that might only happen once in a million is going to happen when you test it on 50 million people. You're going to get 50 people who have some pretty terrible or surprising outcomes. And so that part is a little scary. And I could see people being a little skeptical of that, but it frustrates me a little bit to hear the anti-vaxxers, I guess, the people who are just that this is Bill Gates trying to get microchips in all of us. Like, he's going to do that anyway, guys. He doesn't need the vaccine to do this.
Yeah, well,
he's going to make you buy it yourself.
Before I would agree with, and I do agree with you. I mean, I don't see any positive in being anti-vaccine, especially the ones that, we take as kids, you're forced to take essentially.
Yeah.
But today, where we are with a brand new vaccine, and we've got just every single turn during this whole trip, a doctor has either contradicted himself completely or herself completely, or they've just completely just misspoken and what they said wasn't accurate at all. We've got Fauci saying, don't wear the masks, wear the mask, don't wear the masks. It's hard to trust the medical professionals or the experts, as we call them, in today's climate. And especially when you have Kamala Harris saying, I won't take the vaccine if Trump says I should take it. And then she turns around on TV and takes it. And it's just like.
Yeah, I saw her again the other day. I want to like her so bad. And I think
worse. Did you
one-on-one setting, I'm sure she's a wonderful human being, but she has such an inauthenticity or an authenticity problem. She seems so inauthentic when she's speaking. It seems like a show that she's like trying to be the cool aunt, and it doesn't come across like that. And
yeah, she put out a video about how she grew up celebrating the traditions of Kwanzaa, even though Kwanzaa wasn't even born until about 18 years later.
Yeah, I saw that too. And it's just so frustrating that the Democrats went down this route again with Biden and Kamala. I mean, Kamala called him a racist, and then a couple months later had no response as to why she did that, except
it was a debate. It was a debate.
Yeah, you don't come across as authentic that way. You come across as opportunist.
And even in the context of a debate, that's dirty. You can't even call that debating. That's just a low blow. Throw the flag.
Especially when I think she agreed with him in the long run, like when people dug into it. And I had a neighbor who's African American who totally flipped my mind on this, because I was like, yeah, how in the world can Biden defend not supporting busing in the 60s or 70s when this was happening? And what was going on, in case you're listening, is that they were taking kids from all black schools and busing them over into the white neighborhoods so that they could go to the white schools because the white schools were better. And she said she was totally against that. And she's in her 50s. I think she just turned 50. So I'm not exactly sure if she was in that cohort that would have been able to be bused. But she said, no, she was totally against that, because what they were doing, or what they were not doing, is they were not busing the white kids from the all white schools and busing them over into the all black schools, because that would have been fair. But no white families were going to want to go to the all black schools. Sure, we could have some of the black kids be blessed by the white presence in the white school, but how did how did the black kids feel? They felt like they were like getting a handout from the white people. And it was like, that makes sense.
The problem was that there were a lot of people in the black communities are like, I don't want to go an hour across town to go to school with a bunch of people I don't know. I want to go to school with my friends.
I just want to have the resources that I need to be able to get a good education. And I don't want to be discriminated against.
Truth be told, and I think Kamala Harris even knows this, forced busing was not a good solution to anything. It even probably set us back a little bit. And I think she knew that, and especially considering she was not one of those little girls in that first cohort. That was also proven. It just doesn't, the time doesn't add up. But she pulled that card, and as soon as she did that, I swear to God, I was sitting there watching it with my fiance. She basically did the I'm not saying you're racist, but you're racist bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, That's how she got the bid for vice presidency right there. If Joe Biden wins, she will be his vice president.
Well,
I called it right then and there.
yeah, it couldn't have made me more mad. I was like, because I wanted her. She checks all the boxes, right? It's like who you want. We want a woman in her 50s who's liberal, California,
Of color.
I hate saying that. I don't care. Even in the woman thing, I want the person with the best policies, period. Color shouldn't matter, race shouldn't matter. But I understand as the symbol of.
Well, how anti-progressive of you, Mr. Case, the most qualified person. Do you hear the patriarchy just oozing out of your mouth right now?
I get told that sometimes, which is just insane to me. I want everybody to have an equal shot, which may mean that we have to do certain things for people who have historically been oppressed, but it doesn't mean that we should choose anybody based on their color. That's racism. We shouldn't choose anybody based on their gender. That's sexism. We choose people based on their skills, their abilities, period, especially for jobs that are as important as the president. And there were plenty of Black women and Black men and white women and white men that I think were more qualified and more capable.
There is a plethora of people, all gender, all color, more qualified than Kamala Harris. But when you say it has to be a woman of color, I mean, who do you got? You got her. You got Stacey Abrams, who's, still governing Georgia unofficially. I don't know. I like Tulsi Gabbard personally.
I like Tulsi Gabbard too. I think she's good. I like.
But she's not a woman of color that the left likes to consider one of their own.
No. Atlanta's mayor. Who's Atlanta's mayor?
Oh,
Lance Bottoms.
Lance Bottoms, yeah, Bottoms.
I liked her a lot too. If I'll have to send you the clip of her after the cities were burning down. I think you'd love it because she basically just calls them all out. Like, this is not what Martin Luther King was about. This is not. If you want to protect you and your family, then you need to go home. And she just lets them have it. And I thought that's what we needed as a mayor, as a Democratic mayor, to stand up and say, listen, there's a way to do this, but this is not it. Because you go down that route and then, the only alternative, you start war. That's how wars get started. So you start burning down cities and then people start shooting back. And that's not the way to get change over the long term done, unless you're willing to go that route, unless you're saying we need a revolution, a bloody revolution. I don't think that's what anybody wants. I definitely don't want that. Even though, I think there could be a lot of changes. Okay. This one I think could get us into a lot of hot topic, and I feel like maybe we're not qualified, but to throw you a bone here, Nancy Pelosi gets elected speaker again. So from the progressive wing, it drives me nuts. And then she does something that is what I just thought was silly, and I haven't looked into it enough, but apparently she has said that we're not going to use the words like mother, sister, wife. We're going to say father, parent, sibling, brother, spouse.
Yeah.
We don't use those words anymore. Like, all right, so the outrage on the right, I feel like it's a little overblown. Who cares? Just, all right, cool. The idea that they're saying like, we've got all these problems and this is what the Democrat, no, they don't. This took 3 seconds out of their day, to make this statement, to make a little pledge. They can still worry about all the other stuff.
Farts,
Well, gross. They can worry about all, even grosser. They can worry about all of the things that are really happening to America, and then also say this. So we have to stop acting like because they did this, they don't care about the working families. No, they could say this and then still care about all the other stuff and do all those other things for those people. But on the other side, like, I need somebody to explain to me, and I'm sure I will. My sister is very progressive and smarter than I am, so I'm sure she will explain this to me at some point, because I want everybody of whatever gender they are to have as equal of rights as anybody in the world. And I don't care if you're transgender or, do whatever you want to do. That's live and let live. If you're not hurting anybody, enjoy your life. And I don't want to offend you. So if there's something you would like me to call you, fine. I'm absolutely for that. But where that science thing that falls off for me is that I feel like we're not having a real conversation. Like there aren't men and women. And absolutely biologically, I mean, J.K. Rowling, this person who is as liberal as they come, got in trouble for this, for saying that there are men and there are women. Explain.
Yep.
I know there are some people who are intersex. It's like 1 to 2% of our population, which is a whole lot more than we've ever talked about. That's like as many redheads are in the world as there are people who are in between. They're not really a full man or a full woman.
The vast majority of them wind up leaning towards one attributed gender or the
I
other.
listened to a whole documentary on this, and a lot of times the doctors make the decisions, or the parents will make the decision. Like their genitalia is literally.
But I mean, like there's one gender is more pronounced than the other.
That's what they say, but it's like,
cases.
I mean, it's based on what this person will say. But yeah, okay, so maybe they have a little more testosterone than they have estrogen, but they're not totally like what we would call a man, or totally, and maybe there is a spectrum. I mean, LeBron James has way more testosterone in his body than I do. I can barely grow a beard. And this guy's 6'7" and looks like a full-grown man when he's 15. So, but I feel like we're getting into the woods where we're in like la la land sometimes when we're talking about this stuff, and it scares me a little bit that we're getting there. But I'm sure I'm wrong. I need more information about why I'm wrong here.
Well, I think what it is more is the left, at least over the last, I don't know, 40, 50 years, have put all of, if not most of, all of their focus in the culture. Mm-hmm. Where Republicans have put all of their focus into the policy. That's why we have Hollywood the way it is, big tech, the media, education, all of it, is because the left has put all their focus towards the culture, to the point where we're now where they're changing the definitions of words, like right before our very eyes, where gender, which initially had nothing to do with the human body, it was about literature, whether words are masculine or feminine, or where, like especially in like Spanish. That's what gender was originally designed to define. And now we've taken gender and we've like, well, no, it's like sex, but it's different because it's a social construct. Well, if it's a social construct, then why is it so important when a woman accomplishes anything? If it's just a social construct, a woman could be this, a woman could be that. What is a woman anymore? So now
that point, can people transition if there is no such thing as a man and a woman? What are you transitioning
and that's
to?
exactly what J.K. Rowling was saying. It's like, what is homosexuality if gender's not a real thing? If gender's just flimsy, how can you be a homosexual or a heterosexual or any of it?
And we have to be able to have this conversation. Like, I can't be called out and blackballed and told that I have to be canceled because maybe I am ignorant on some things. I want to freely admit that it's very possible that I don't know something about that world that I am not part of. And so I would love for somebody to explain it to me, but I can't be canceled for asking the question, which is what I felt like even Megyn Kelly, which she was maybe ignorant of history a little bit when it came to blackface, but then asking why is it so racist to dress up like Michael Jackson? Well, somebody should have explained it to her why it was so racist and why it hurt so many people. But instead they just send her away when it could have been a really great teaching moment, I felt like, for everybody. And instead we canceled them. And I'm so against that culture. There are some people who need to be canceled, but we've taken it to another level, I feel like.
Well, it's gotten to such an extreme that I don't know if you saw this, but during the opening prayer for the 117th Congress, what have you, the congressman, I can't remember his name, I want to say he's from Ohio, finished the opening prayer with "Amen" and "A women."
I don't know the origin of "amen." Does "amen"?
It literally translates to "make it so," essentially. It has nothing to do with a man or masculinity or anything like that.
It happenstance just kind of looks, has the word men inside of it. It's kind of like history when people say her story.
For the sake of gender equality, we now have to make up a word that nobody found offensive in the first place.
Right.
to make up for that word that nobody found offensive in the first place.
Yeah, that's
It's
interesting.
bullshit. It's like the Latinx. Have you heard the phrase
Latinx.
Latinx?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Latino implies that it's male, but they're also female. So they need to also, it's Latinx. Do you realize you ask 10 Latino people what they think about the word Latinx? They don't even know what you're talking about. At
Yeah.
least 9 to 10. This isn't a
Trying to
Latino
play.
issue. This is white people. Just fucking, they have to just save things that aren't looking to be saved.
That
It's
is the white savior complex you'll hear a
yeah, it's
lot,
the
where it's
worst.
like we would all have wanted to be in the civil rights movement, right? Like who would not have wanted to march with Martin Luther King? Who would
Mhm,
not have wanted to be in the March on Washington? Like, of
mhm,
course I would have wanted to do that. And I think sometimes, not to say that there aren't real issues today, but sometimes we find ourselves a little too cushy, and then we have to go find our civil rights movement, even if there's not really one to be had. Like we have to make mountains out of molehills instead of saying, look, life is really, really good for so many people and so much better
mhm.
for so many people than it was just 30, 40 years ago, and celebrate the progress, find the parts where we could still do better and, do better where we can. But yeah, sometimes I feel like we are acting like it's the 1960s. And even though, like I said, there's still lots of problems to be sure that we're not celebrating the success that we've made as a country, as a world in the past 50 years, which is I
Yeah,
think it's Daniel Pinker's book, or Daniel Pink.
Steven Pinker.
Is that his name, Daniel Pinker? It's called
Steven Pinker.
Enlightenment Now.
Yeah,
And
Steven Pinker.
Steven Pinker. And yeah, and he documents how life has gotten better for so many people throughout, the past 100 years, in almost every aspect we can imagine. So,
Mhm.
wow. Um,
And you know what's interesting? I remember back when we were just talking about taking down Confederate statues. And the one person coming out against it is Donald Trump. He's saying, yeah, okay, we'll take down Confederate statues today. And then what? We're going to start taking George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Christopher Columbus. Can you imagine? And the media all said, oh, okay, look at him making extreme examples. Like, that's not what. And then literally we're at a point in
yeah.
life where we're taking down, we're changing the name of Abe Lincoln High School because, and I quote, in San Francisco, he did not emulate that Black Lives Mattered in his life.
Well,
Abraham Lincoln.
he's got some really problematic quotes of
They all do, but
yeah.
he did not demonstrate that Black Lives Mattered in his life.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's the guy who
What?
emancipated slavery, right?
Right.
But Donald Trump has done more for Black people than anybody.
It's a toss up. Really, you could make the argument either way. I mean, it's
But
tough.
so yeah, I find statues to be just a weird thing that we do as human beings. I think it strangles the future generations a little bit, and like, don't make a statue of me. Be better than I was. Every generation should be better, and we should look back and we should be able to have a teaching moment in those instances too. Like what I would have loved to see at those statues, more than I would have liked to see them taken down, is to erect other statues around them, to erect big plaques that told the stories of who these people were, why these statues were erected, the problems with them, the things that they were celebrated for. Some of those, like Confederate soldiers, like they were just up there because civil rights was moving forward in the United States, and they wanted to erect Confederates to say a big middle finger to civil rights. They didn't want integration. So
Without
let's put it
question.
up there. Like, this is part of our history. It's something that I think was terrible, but let's use it as a teaching moment for the people who walk through these. But I can understand, like, hey, let's make history by taking them down.
See,
That's
I
history
could
too.
give a damn if it's a statue stands or falls, but I think it's important to realize that the statue isn't always to emulate the man rather than a certain thing that man or woman or whomever has done. Abraham Lincoln didn't get a statue because he had the worst rhetoric towards Black people. He got it because he emancipated the slaves. Christopher Columbus, his statue isn't standing because we're so proud of the genocide that he and his people put on the Native Americans. It's to symbolize how thank God he came and brought Western civilization to the West, because that's why we are where we are now. And
you're
I mean, we could do it with R. Kelly. Yeah, we could do it with R. Kelly all day long. We could separate how horrible he is versus God. I love that song.
I believe I can fly.
Exactly. It
believe
slaps no matter how many
I can
times.
fly.
Yeah, we can do it with R. Kelly, but we can't do it with George Washington. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of people jamming out to a Thriller too today.
Michael Jackson. Yeah,
he's at every one of my middle school dances comes on, and I look around and like nobody's got a problem.
Dude, so my fiance, she's got me watching a few episodes of Glee, and there's one episode where a guy was going to do an homage or a song of Chris Brown, and all the girls in the Glee group were upset because, Chris Brown hit Rihanna, and women don't like Chris Brown anymore or whatever.
I don't like Chris Brown.
He's like, yeah, but I'm separating the man from the music. He made some of the greatest music of all time.
He's incredibly talented.
Anywho, so at the end of the episode, he goes, oh, I'm still doing a Brown song, but not Chris Brown. And he puts a Bobby Brown song on. It's like, how is that not worse?
That's terrible.
Yeah. He just abused Whitney Houston until she smoked her kneecaps off and killed herself. But yeah, whatever.
Did you see poor Bobby Brown? He lost Whitney, and then he lost his daughter, and then I think his son just died just a couple months ago or something. Tragic. Just see a family who had so many talents in their life. Can't even imagine. Sad. But all right, yeah. So I think we've done enough to get canceled today. Not that anybody watches, but if they did, it would be over for us.
Yeah, well, stick around. We're gonna do a racism and abortion episode all in one. We're just gonna tackle it. We'll see if we survive.
Just questions, just conversations, guys.
Yeah.
Conversations. That's what we need more of these. And if we're wrong, tell us where we're wrong, and then we'll flip flop and change our opinions. That's called growing and evolving. Yeah. And I think we should all be doing more of.
I was just joking, but I did just see that the state of Massachusetts just passed a law that the new legal age of consent for an abortion without parents' permission is 16 in Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, that's a really tough one too. I mean, we could get into abortion like crazy because, it's
interesting.
I don't know.
It's not something I hear and I'm like, I'm automatically outraged. Like, how could it's like? I mean, I guess if we're saying abortion's okay, if that's the premise of the conversation, then yeah, I think a 16-year-old could be of the body and mind to decide they want an abortion. And if that happens and the parents like, no, you're not, you're gonna have the kid because I said so. Yeah, I guess I could kind of see it. But at the same time, I hear it and it's just like, but a 16-year-old can't actually even consent to sex with somebody who's over, I think, 19 or 20 or maybe 24 in some states. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just weird how we draw the lines so arbitrarily when it comes to that. A 16-year-old can consent to having sex with a 20-year-old, but a 15-year-old can't consent to having sex with a 20-year-old. Like,
yeah, no. These I'm reading this book right now called Sapiens, and it's a brief look into human history, and he's talking about some of the foragers back in the day and how we can learn about them through some of the tribes that we found in the past 100 years, 150 years that were like untouched by civilization or whatever, and they would do things that we would find abhorrent, like if they had too many girls in their tribes, they would just kill the baby girl because they didn't need any more girls. Or if the old person was getting too slow or something like that, not able to keep up, they just like leave them there because that's a problem. And he was saying, but before you get so quick to judge, like they've probably had experiences where if they weren't able to move, like it put their tribe in a lot of danger. And so they were looking out for the group rather than that one individual. And so they had to make those certain sacrifices. And he was saying, before you do that, look at your own society when it comes to abortion or when it comes to I don't know, the homelessness and things like that, where sometimes we make these decisions that are kind of, like you said, arbitrary, that we're like, this is okay and this is not okay. And it's really just these fine lines that we're talking about. I want women to have as many rights to their own body as possible. I
Yeah.
can understand how somebody might say that what you're doing is essentially ending the life of an unborn child. When does it become an unborn child and not a cluster of cells, I think is the question. And I think a lot of people say, when you say like the morning after pill is an abortion, I don't know if I'm there with that.
Yeah.
If you want to say like the first couple of weeks, I don't know. I think we want women to be able to control their own bodies, and when does it become not their body is the question. And I'm not sure that the government making that decision for the woman adds anything to that, but I'm sure at some point there is a role for the government to step in and say, hey, we have to protect that innocent life. And
yeah,
it's a tough question for sure, that I wrestle with. So
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, realistically, I would prefer that if the government was going to have a role one way or the other, at least on a federal level, they should just stay out of it. Because if the argument is that the federal government's only job is to protect life, then it needs to be determined at what point you're protecting a life and ending a life. And if we can't do that, then you shouldn't have it. It should fall under the 10th or the 14th, where it's whatever we're not talking about, that's for the states to decide.
Yeah, that's the 10th Amendment. And
yeah,
but then you got Mississippi. Sorry, Mississippi, but you guys are just I can't trust you people.
yeah.
I'm just kidding, but it is, yeah, it's tough. The federal government can sometimes bring everybody up to a certain level, but sometimes what they end up doing is bringing the people up here down to that level, even if they are raising some states up. And then in other cases, you feel like they should just stay out of it and let us be a cultural experiment from state to state, and we can kind of let the cream rise to the top, and then other people can implement those same ideas. But
yeah, a women to that, brother. Women to
a women. I can't believe we're talking about that. At some point, we're going to have to get onto a religion topic, because my biggest problem with opening with a prayer to a 117th Congress is that they opened up with a prayer. We're supposed to be areligious, non-religious, any of this stuff. And every morning in my school, we do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we say under God, which was only put in the 1950s. It wasn't there at the beginning. All our money has under God in it. And I'm always wondering which God they're talking about. And I don't know.
Man, whatever God you want.
Or no God. Or, I imagine if the word was changed, people would start some problems. If, we put
in Trump
Allah.
We trust.
Oh my God. Now he's a God? Now?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying,
Eminem
make
say?
the argument. That's all I'm saying.
Eminem said, why be a king when you could be a God?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my biggest problem is I think that when you start doing this, then you get the Festivus for the rest of us kind of things, and you get the Satan statue in Tallahassee with little kids playing on his lap and the devil horns, and just keep religion out of it. If you want to play with your toys, cool, just don't make me play with your toys. The Christopher Hitchens quote. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. We can talk about that too, because there's a lot of good things that religion does, and some things that I disagree with. So
yeah, and I don't denominate with anyone in particular anyway, so I got no leg to stand on anyway, so we could do that.
Okay, good deal. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that was another episode of Across the Aisle. My name is Chaz Case.
I'm Justin Collins.
See you later. Hey, women.
Hey, women.